What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to do the final review of the case Kinzua. First off, let me just kind of address the bear in the room, so to speak. Is somebody gave me a little bit of grief saying that I was basically pinpointing and trying to find something wrong with this knife. And kind of the reason why, yes, it's true. I was kind of pinpointing. And the reason is because everybody sold this knife. The retailers are selling this knife as USA made. Well, I mean, it clearly says right here is with domestic and imported materials. So, I mean, yes, they have it made in the USA, but they clearly also add with domestic and imported materials. And when a case like that happens, that usually means that something has been imported with the knife. And odds are it's either the handles and or probably the blade. So when you have that and you're piecing a knife together with materials from two separate manufacturers and you're assembling them, you tend to have mistakes. And I think one of the biggest mistakes is this detent lash that we have, that the ball was not perfectly sized up for the hole, and that's why we have the detent lash. Now, it's not a deal breaker, in my opinion. It doesn't open up enough to catch your pant leg necessarily. I've carried it a whole bunch of times, never had a problem with it. But with that being said, that is a huge pet peeve for a lot of guys. The other thing that does kind of bother me is when the ball hits the back of the blade, you're basically your detent up here. It's pretty aggressive. And I'm not a huge fan of that, because you have to put a certain amount of pressure without putting any pressure on the lock bar, because if you put any pressure on the lock bar, then you make it even harder to close. So yeah, it's an issue in my opinion. Is it a terrible knife? No, not at all. But when you turn around and compare to a knife like this, the Thai 22, which is basically $50 cheaper, and is actually made out of titanium and not aluminum. It's a little bit smaller knife than this one. I kind of like the size of this knife. Although that pocket clip is extremely aggressive. They could have it sits up very high. Pocket clip sits a lot lower on this knife. It feels a lot better. There's a heck of a bulge on this knife. You notice it, definitely. You definitely notice it. They could have shaved that down, put some flush mounted screws in there, and they could have definitely saved, from having to make it so big and bulky. It does seat pretty good, pretty deep carry. It sits low in the pocket. It's not bad. Overall, knife's not bad. My other little pet peeve, and that kind of goes with a lot of these knives, is the Tanto tip is really small. It's got to taper down to a really small Tanto tip. It's almost like you're kind of dancing around. Do we really want to make a Tanto or not? Or, it's like, we're kind of on the fence. And it's like, that kind of bugs me. You're going to make a Tanto or you're not. So let's just do some quick comparisons to some knives I got handy. There's the Civivi Elementum Tanto. Yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, we got the Tor knives, which is definitely a lot. These two knives they're very close to the same size, which, let's give you a quick little measurement. About 8 inches overall, and about 3¼ inches of blade. So, it's a good size. I like 8-inch knives. 8-inch knives are a good all-around knife. And okay, I just so happen to have the best tech sledgehammer handy too. So there you go, another little comparison. That's all I have handy. Good preparation. Oh no! Here we go. Yeah, Chris Reeves Sabenza 21. So there, yeah, perfectly good size knives, right in the same range. That's a Tanto tip that you can actually enjoy, that you can actually appreciate. Has, yeah, it's definitely a lot bigger, definitely more appreciative. But anyway, so yes, was I trying to pick on the knife? No, not necessarily. I was disappointed in the fact that, like I said, that it wasn't really technically made in the USA. I do appreciate Case adding this on there, that it was made from domestic and imported materials. I think that's an important fact that a lot of knife reviewers are kind of revolve around. They're like, oh yes, it's Case, it's made in the USA. They don't really want to show you the fine. It's not that fine of a print either, guys. But they do try. They do all avoid saying that. So there you go. You can, and they even question it. So if you're gonna, if there, and some of them even were like, oh, it's controversial knife, and it's like, it's made in the USA. Yeah, they don't actually address the bear in the room, but okay, whatever. But overall, the knife isn't terrible either. I mean, you got your camera lately is just not focusing. It's 35 VN. That's what it says there, believe it or not. Yeah, the camera just doesn't want to ever focus these days. Yeah, technology. They've got to love it. Okay. So, yeah, you believe it or not, it's S35VN. Yeah, and the aluminum scales, they are pretty good. There's no wiggle anywhere except for the detent lash. That's the only thing. This is the only unnecessary wiggle that we have, which, like I said, if that bugs you, this is definitely not the knife for you. It's been in every knife that I've seen. I've seen a few knife reviewers. They've all addressed it. So, it's a thing. Some other people that have commented said that they've gotten it and it has the same detent lash. So there you go. I don't think it's something that's going to necessarily improve unless a totally new batch and they address that issue. Now the camera is all over the place as far as focusing. Okay, and we probably should not have tried to adjust it on the fly. But anyway, so there you go. It's an 8-inch knife. Feels good. Slim in the pocket. Slim in the hand. Overall, not too bad. It's $100 and something dollars, like $110, something like that. Like I said, if I was to pick, I'd almost honestly, wow, I would probably, oh, here we go. I would probably honestly prefer this over it, honestly. The action is super fabulous. There's no wiggle. Action super fidget friendly, even it really is. It's just, so 50, 60 bucks cheaper in titanium. Yeah, I would probably, in all honesty, pick the Ti 22. And it's slimmer. It's smaller. Which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of most of the time. Most of the time, I would prefer a bigger knife. But I have to give this knife a lot of credit that even though it's small, it still feels good in the hand. And you'll never notice you're even carrying it either. It's feels good all the way around in the pocket, and it's less expensive. And yes, it's made in China. This is not a USA versus China thing. I don't have it. I'm not going to sit here and get into that argument. That is a personal preference. It is my job here to bring Tanto knives of all countries made. Everything that's made. And let you guys be the judge of whether or not you want to buy, whether it's a partially manufactured American knife, a full-blown Chinese knife, or your full-blown American knives, which both of these are both American knives. We're not going to get into that argument. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. So that is your Case. Kinzua, however you want to pronounce it. Overall, not a bad knife. If you don't mind spending, if you got $100 and want a, knife that has a little wiggle in the detent, if you don't, if it doesn't bother you. Other than that, it's really not a bad knife. But like I said, Case doesn't make bad knives. I mean, this is not a bad knife. It's just, the Detent Lash, that should have been something that it really shouldn't have. Should have been addressed. But either way, guys, that's it for today. Have a great day. We'll catch you next time. Bye.